All right, you might have heard there's a big debate tomorrow night, and all eyes and probably knives are on one Donald Trump. And to this day, 75 days or so after announcing, how is it that Donald Trump still maintains that #1 status in the polls? My crackpot theory on Trump's success is the fact that he speaks his mind, but more often than not, it's the fact that he is more technologically savvy than you know. In other words, anyone who says anything bad about him, within a nanosecond, he's responding. That's because his eyes and tentacles are everywhere. And doesn't Scott McNeely know it? Of course, the Sun Microsystems founder, technology titan et al. I think that's his big success. He keeps track of everything and has the technology to boot.
And it's not polls anymore. And polls don't matter. It's what's going on in social. That's driving. If you look at, for instance, on Twitter, I feel bad. I only have 12,200, 300 followers. Trump has over 4 million followers.
Does he really?
And you look at Carson and Fiorina, they're in the 500,000 range. He's dominating, and that shows support that he's able to get the message out so quick. He doesn't have to.
How does he, though? I mean, how can he keep track of what everyone is saying about it?
Well, because that's a setup. I'm CEO of Weigh In. Weigh In is a tool that allows anybody to track the entire social conversation by keyword, by trends, by whatever.
So if I use Weigh In, I wanted to hear what people were saying about me. All complimentary.
We could do that in a second. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Let's talk during the break. Now, on this, I don't understand why other candidates don't get it as much, because he responds rapidly. They do respond, sometimes using the same technologies, but not nearly so rapidly.
Well, they don't have the followers either. Their message isn't as emotionally exciting or resonating with them, or they haven't been working at getting those followers. It's hard to go do that. He has a consumer brand, which is very valuable. Carly comes from a not quite the consumer brand that Trump's stuff is, and he's certainly worked hard at being. Anytime you're on TV like Trump, you get an enormous number of followers that way, whether
he filled up a 20,000 person arena.
It's amazing.
All right, so Carly, from her HP days. I mean, we're told, Scott, that she's the one person who could put Trump in his place. Maybe because of how her ads and how she has responded online to his attacks, presumably on her looks. He says no. What do you think of that, and how do you think this would go? Man versus woman here.
I think that would be an interesting challenge. I think Carly is very articulate in what she says. I have a hard time disagreeing with. I disagreed with her in business, and we competed like crazy. We also partnered, and Hewlett Packard was a great partner. So she knows how to do that. She's been around the world. She's got the experience. I think any CEO has a huge advantage in my book over. I'm a believer that. Well,
there are two CEOs. He's a CEO too.
Yeah, but
yesterday he was criticizing, or this past weekend, CEO pay as excessive, and I thought that would be like me offering dietary advice because he's a billionaire. But nevertheless, it was effective and it resonated with those same folks online.
I'm a believer in creating products and services that are based on technology and invention.
Have you seen his buildings? They're everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a terrible amount of innovation there. I think anybody who understands where innovation comes from, where wealth gets created, it doesn't necessarily get created on, a You're Fired TV show. I think it gets done through.
You're just angry that you didn't get The Apprentice.
I never
Schwarzenegger did. Right. Well, what happens now, and what do you think is behind his success? Because most people have been saying, surely it would have petered out by now, and yet he's as popular as ever. And they say different rules apply to him. What is the reason Scott McNeely sees as his success?
It's hard for me. I think everybody's angry, just totally angry. Government is so out of control. It's scope creep beyond belief. And they're invading, and I call it crony statism. I do not call it crony capitalism.
What does that mean?
Crony statism is where you use the government and regulations and taxpayer dollars to grow your business. And it is because the government is encroached on financial services, on health care, on education, on all of the they're in everywhere. You have to work with the government and become a crony status. I'm a believer in the private sector, small government, limited regulation, and allowing people to pursue and socialist.
Well, that's a conservative economic thought.
Right.
On social issues,
but it's also on socialist. It is very liberal on social in the sense we let people choose.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. But here's where Trump has sort of dislodged many in the Republican Party, that he doesn't necessarily favor lower taxes across the board. In fact, he says the rich should pay more. We're really going after hedge fund managers, saying they're getting away with murder. These companies that ship jobs overseas, they would pay under President Trump. He's already told Nabisco, I've stopped eating Oreo cookies because you ship jobs around. And that's resonating with, oddly enough, the same base that, well, is not the base that I remember in the Republican Party.
Yeah. I believe all of these things can be solved by reducing the scope of government, and you will get jobs coming back home.
What do you think of his wanting to penalize hedge fund guys and to go after companies that ship jobs overseas?
Companies don't ship jobs overseas. People get hired overseas. It's a competition. It isn't a question of shipping.
President Trump would punish them.
I don't believe in protectionism. I don't believe in isolationism on an economic front. It won't work. But I'm not sure exactly. I haven't really been able to decipher Trump's actual philosophies and strategies and the values under which he will decide things as he goes forward. And I think that's going to be hard for him until he lays that philosophy out clearly, as opposed to in, one-liners and sound bites. I think it's going to be a little more complicated for him to get all the way there. Although, I look and I think the voter is very, very confused these days.
Yeah, and we've elected unusual folks at different times.
I also don't know how voters who've been educated by government sector unions and tenured professors can have a clear young voters anyhow have a clear understanding how the market economy and capitalism
or even
works.
care. But could I get your take on it? Do you think, just stepping back as an accomplished CEO in your own right and someone who gets the business world, is very successful at it, that guys like you can't make it in politics because you're calling the shots in business? You're obviously dealing with boards and shareholders and all of that, so I disagree with that snap, description. That Trump would be in for a rude awakening. He just can't tell Mexico build a wall. He can't tell the Chinese to get off. I mean, that it's not that easy.
CEO versus president is a different job, but people think that CEOs can just dictate. Well, we can't, and we don't. We have enormous numbers of constituencies.
Yeah, but you force some things through.
Obama
in a
doesn't.
Good way.
Obama doesn't.
Yeah, I hear you.
Right. So, I mean, they are the chief executive, and they do have executive powers. So, I think having somebody who is a international, diplomatic, and accomplished.
You're being nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice.
Yes, I see. I caught you being nice.
Yeah, sorry. And
it was a rare slip for you.
I run out of things to say when I'm trying to be
Real
nice.
quickly, these markets were up about 180 points. Do you think it makes a difference one way or the other if Fed hikes rates? I mean, they telegraphed that they're going to hike rates. What happens if they don't, Scott? The end of the year comes and they've not hiked rates.
The Fed is only creating uncertainty, and by printing money, we're only devaluing everybody's nest egg. We're devaluing everything in dollars, assets. So my view is we ought to grow the money supply at the same as the 3-year moving average of the GDP. And we ought to just grow the money supply.
We would have never had this market rally.
We would have never had the big problem. So we wouldn't have had the asset bubbles. If you keep the money supply growing with the rate of the GDP, it takes all the uncertainty out, and we get rid of the savings and loan bubble, the derivatives bubble, the Fannie Mae bubble, and Congress can't screw around with our economy. Make them balance the budget, grow the money supply at the rate of GDP. You'll take all the uncertainty out, and you'll see CEOs go crazy investing and implementing and growing the business. And I'm not running for office.
No, you should.
There's not enough Kevlar to keep me alive. So.
Well, all right. There are a lot of good ideas there.
Follow me on Twitter, and I'll give you some more good ideas.
Yeah, good. I want that research on my name and find out what people are saying about it. But we'll talk about it after that in the break.